Welcome, everyone. We're going to give participants another 30 seconds to join us, and we'll get going. If you're a bit early, feel free to grab a glass of water, perhaps a coffee if you just finished having lunch, and we'll begin very shortly. All right, I think we're ready. Hello, everyone. I'm Vlad Gheorghiu, CEO and co-founder of Kyan Health, and I want to start by thanking you for joining us today. At Kyan, we work with organizations across Europe to improve mental health in a way that's measurable, but also tied to real business outcomes. What we've learned is that goals, when done well, are a critical enabler for that mission. Not the fluffy kind, but the kind that are really clear, value-driven, and embedded in daily life. Personally, I've set many goals: professional, fitness goals, nutrition goals, and even parent-related goals, now that I welcomed our second daughter only a few months ago. Some stuck, most didn't. And the difference was never ambition or motivation up front, it was integration. Goals only work when they become part of how we operate on a regular basis. It's not something that we revisit at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. It's really about maintaining our commitment to goals over time. That's why we're doing this webinar. We want to offer you a practical framework that you can actually use, not just as an individual, but really as a team or even an organization if you happen to be in a leadership role. This session is part of Kyan Academy series. It's our way of sharing what works based on data and real-world application. So whether you're joining us today for your own growth or for the growth of your team, or just to really explore what Kyan does, I am very happy to welcome you today and to explore together what good mental health can look like. Today, I'm joined by Natalia, who will walk us through the core of the session before I welcome you back at the end of the session to go in a bit more depth and explain what Kyan can do for you and your organization. Without further ado, Natalia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vlad, and thank you everybody who is joining us today from wherever you are in the world. I'm super happy to be leading and co-hosting this session. I'm Natalia Sarro. I'm a licensed psychologist and career coach with 15 years of experience working in the field of mental health and corporate well-being in burnout prevention for global teams and leaders is one of my biggest passions. And when Vlad invited me to share with you today some best practices and tools about goal setting, I thought this is so timely, right? Because we are bombarded with so many stimuli and projects and deadlines and so many things happening right now in our personal and work lives that it's so easy to get distracted and it's so easy not to achieve our deep aspirations. So I invite you just to join the session as someone that is going to discuss with you what it means to be a human in the fast-paced workplaces we're all in, right? Because again, in the end of the day, goal setting is about achieving things that we love achieving as humans or that we need to achieve as human beings. So let's get started. And I would like to invite you, first of all, just to get involved. So please scan the QR code that you can see right now in the screen. This is going to take you to a website called Slido, and this is going to give you the opportunity to interact live with me and with the polling sessions you're going to be receiving in a couple of minutes so that we can actually get to discuss and have a conversation, right? So all your votes will be totally anonymous. So having said this, let's have a look at the agenda. So today we're going to be covering three main areas. First of all, we will be talking about why setting our goals is necessary, but sometimes it's really so hard to define. And above all, why is it so hard to stay on track? As Vlad was mentioning before, sometimes we have, we begin the year with lots of resolutions about fitness related goals, professional related goals, family or travel related goals. But then at some point of the year, we start to lose motivation and clarity and direction. Why does that happen? And what can we do about it? How can we support ourselves in integrating this big dreams, these big aspirations as real plans, right? To stay really motivated and focused. And also, we will talk about challenges, real life human being challenges like you and me, right? What happens? What gets in the way of staying on track and finishing that marathon training, or maybe finally developing that language skill that we said was important for us, or improving a specific skill at work that it's going to grant us the opportunity to develop our career further. So whatever your situation is, you are in the right session, and let's get started. So first of all, let me hear you and share with me, just from the top of your head, what do you think are the main risks of not setting goals, right? Of maybe basically going with the flow. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going with the flow. I think there are some moments in our lives when we want to be relaxed and don't have so much in our minds, right? But when it comes to developing your career, or maybe when it comes to relocating to a new country with your family, or when it comes to managing a team with complex deadlines and processes, having goals is important. So what are the risks of not setting clear goals? Maybe you can think of a personal situation you went through. It could be something that you imagine happening to you if you're new in the world of business. What do you think are the risks? For example, hard to know where you're heading exactly. It's just like, you start improvising maybe with a new project or with incorporating new health related habits, but you don't have a clear goal or a clear plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I think it's a really good a good saying that basically anticipates possible results. It makes it difficult for us maybe to make decisions. Exactly. When we have clarity what we want to achieve, when you start a new position, when you start a new project, when you, I don't know, start a new hobby, when you have clarity about what you want, it's going to be much, much easier to make decisions. And this is going to save you time. Well, great. So many other answers. Navigating trades-off is more challenging without having goals as a compass. Or effort of aligning with others. Exactly. When we have shared goals with our managers, peers, team members, then it's easier to notice together when we're, getting off track and make necessary adjustments to go back on track when we have a common goal to achieve. Forget what you're doing. That's such an important input, I guess, because when you have clarity about what values are sustaining you in your personal or business life, that acts as a compass. When we don't have clarity why we're doing what we're doing, it's so easy to get demotivated, right? That strength of the inner motivation drops. Issue with priorities. Thank you so much for this great inputs. I'm going to give you a few more seconds because I see some people adding comments. Hard to see what is important versus urgent. Getting endlessly sidetracked. So I think you are absolutely on the right track with this comments. And let's have a look at why goal setting matters. As you said, it's easy to get distracted. It's difficult to establish priorities when we don't set goals. And also, there's some research backing up what we just said. Did you know that 92% of people who set New Year's resolutions never achieve them? So if you think back of your last January 1st or several years ago, other January 1st, how many of those amazing, shiny, New Year's resolutions did you keep up? Not even December, but actually by May, right? Or by March. Unfortunately, many of us do not achieve those resolutions. There's some other shocking data. Like, for example, 83% of the population do not have goals at all, right? Which is what we were discussing before. And many of them have a plan, but they don't even write them down. And this is an interesting piece of data. You are 42% more likely to reach your goals if you write them down. And you might think, well, why? It's just simply writing them down. But there's so many interesting things happening in your brain when you write down an important goal you want to achieve for yourself, for your family, for your team. Basically, it requires from you going outside from the fantasy of your own minds and also the complexity and the chaos of having a human brain. And you have to structure clearly your ideas to put them on paper. So it will require from you a lot of amazing skills to write down your goals. You will have to prioritize what comes first, what goes second, what goes third. You will have to achieve clarity, to be concise and concrete enough to put it down on paper. So there are amazing skills that you are implementing by simply writing them down. That's why it's easier, or at least more probable, that you reach your goals if you take the time and the effort to ask yourself, what is it important for me in my career? What is it important for me in my family life? How do I want to deal with my own health? How do I want to deal with, family goals or financial goals or whatever goals you're thinking of? So probably at this point of the session, you are already thinking about, what are my goals, right? What is it that I want to achieve in my life? As it could be something big, it could be something small. So please take a moment. Maybe you can even take a couple of deep breaths with me and close your eyes if it helps to focus on your values, on your aspirations, on your dreams. And share with us, please, one personal or business goal that you dream of achieving. So feel free to scan the QR code. If you don't have a mobile phone with you, remember you can use your computer or any other devices and go to slido.com and enter hashtag 10200003, and you will be able to participate of the poll session. So don't be shy. Let us know, what is that dream, that goal, that aspiration that's really important for you. It could be for you and your team, just for yourself, for you and your partner. It could be for the department of the company you work for. If you have your own startup, maybe for you and the other stakeholders in your company. So I'm going to be silent for a few seconds so that you can digest the question and share that with us. Excellent. It could be maybe business goals, such as meeting your sales targets this quarter, or it could be, being recognized as a leader. You want to make sure that other people recognize and also gives you the opportunity to step up in a different position that maybe is going to give you more exposure, but also at the same time more responsibilities. It could be about improving language skills. Maybe you're planning to start a career in a new country, or you are stepping up in a position that is going to require from you that you speak a foreign language more fluently, or that you communicate with foreign colleagues on a daily basis, and this is going to be important for you and for your career. Excellent. Learn Greek at B2 level. I've been putting this off. We will talk about procrastination and putting things off in a moment. So thank you so much for making procrastination visible, because this is part of the human experience when it comes to goal setting. I want to make my family more stable, and professionally, I want to complete PMP and get my license before the end of the year. Well, thank you so much for this amazing goals you're sharing. Reach 100 days trek with Kyan Care app. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so glad that you're enjoying the app, and Vlad is going to discuss with us a little bit more about the benefits of that later on. Feeling financially free to give up work and do what I love and be self-employed. That's excellent. Be a good leader, a good husband. Be one of the main actors in the well-being business. Well, thank you so much. Now that you have that particular dream, aspiration, goal in mind, let me remind you of a framework that probably is not the first time you've heard of, right? I totally get it. This is not rocket science, but even though it's not rocket science, most of us fail at really making our goals smart. Right? If you've heard about this framework before, SMART goals allows us to basically go through a checklist to make sure that we have formulated our goals clearly, precisely, and again, that we increase the possibilities of achieving what we really want. So when we create goals according to this framework, SMART framework, we'll see it in a minute, this is going to give us more clarity and focus, right? We know exactly what we want. So it's easy, it's less likely for us to get distracted. It will help us measure progress. If I don't have clarity about what I want to achieve or by when I want to achieve it, how will I be able to notice when I lose direction and come back to my main highway, right? And also setting goals lets you know, this is important for me. I want to get this certification. I want to learn this new language. I want to become a better leader. I want to be the best husband or parent I can be, whatever. And also, when you have clarity about goals, you will notice that it's much, much easier to set clear deadlines that will help you measure success according to your personal calendar. It doesn't have to be necessarily somebody else's deadlines. It has to be your own deadlines that make sense for you. So let's have a look at some examples, right? How can you make your goals S? First of all, the S for specific. The clearer and specific, the more specific, the better, right? Because when your goal is too vague, it obviously will lead to confusion to you. And imagine if you had to share those goals with your team members, right? We need to be clear about what we want to achieve as a team in a project, for example. So one thing is saying, I want to do more physical activity. Nothing wrong with that. But it could be even smarter and more specific if you say, I'm going to plan to run 3 times a week for 30 minutes. You see the difference, right? Or I want to lead a healthy life. That's amazing. But it's more specific if you say, okay, I'm planning to cook a homemade meal 4 times a week to eat healthier. Okay, so you know where I'm going. M stands for measurable. When you define how you're going to measure success, it's going to be easier for you to track progress and, above all, hold yourself accountable, right? When you say, I want financial freedom, one of you, and I think many of us could agree with that statement, we want to be, financially stable or free. That's excellent. But how will you measure your financial success, or at least your progression, right? Your first milestone. And maybe your first milestone is, I'm going to try to save, let's say, $2,000 over the next 6 months, or $500 within the next year. It doesn't really matter as long as you have your own unity of measure, right? Or I'll read one book per month for the rest of the year, because reading or spending time exploring new authors is important for me. Achievable. I think this is probably one of the biggest problems when it comes to goals setting. When we get too ambitious and when we don't get realistic enough, it's so easy to get motivated, right? So, whatever the business or personal goal you are thinking of, ask yourself with total honesty and self kindness, do I have right now, at this time of my life, the energy and the time required for this right now? So imagine you want to implement physical activity because you want to feel healthier, right? But you just became a parent maybe 6 months ago. So it means you're not sleeping that much and you want to prioritize, the care of your family and your baby. So probably running 3 times a week to prepare for a marathon is not going to be that realistic, or it might be possible, but at a very high cost. So ask yourself, can I afford any costs or efforts it might take? What I'm going to leave behind, right? If I prioritize this particular goal at this moment of my life. And I think a very, very self-compassionate question to ask ourselves is there a smaller version of this goal I can start with? I would always go for a smaller, achievable version as opposed to completely giving up your goal. Maybe you cannot save yet $2,000. That's totally fine. But maybe you can start, avoiding the third coffee of the week. So you can make a smaller version of your big financial goal so that you can keep track. And also relevant, right? Sometimes we set goals that have been defined according to the main values of somebody else or what we think is important for others, but not necessarily for us. So ask yourself if this goal aligns with your long-term objectives in your family, in your career, and if this is going to connect maybe with a long-term version of yourself that you want to nurture. Maybe you want to feel healthier, happier, or more fulfilled in your career in 10 years from now. So even though 10 years is a long time, this goal right here, right now feels relevant because this is nurturing, a future version of yourself. So make it relevant if this is going to help you stay connected and motivated. And of course, time bound. When you set clear deadlines, it's easier to maintain focus and momentum. Now, this is your time to shine. This is your time to give it a try. Please don't make this perfect, but just make it possible. So, considering that goal that you shared with us a few minutes ago, give it a shot and see if you can reframe it now according to this SMART framework we just discussed. How can you make it a little bit more specific, a little bit more measurable, or even add a deadline or a timeline? So, you feel, oh, okay, now this is getting a little bit more clear and more concise and more real for me, right? So give it a try. It doesn't have to be perfect again. It's better simply give it a try. So I'm going to be silent for a few seconds so that you can rewrite it and share it with us through Slido. How can you make your goal smarter? Maybe you cannot cover all of the 5 letters of the framework, but you can cover today 1 or 2, a little bit more achievable, or make it more relevant or measurable. How are you going to measure that it's possible for you to, that you're actually, advancing in your aspiration? For example, learn Greek at B2 level by December 31st, so I could have a conversation with my mother-in-law. That's lovely. That seems also relevant because it's tied up to a family member and also the deadline is clear. Thank you. Take a language course in the summer. Okay. Complete 100-day streak on Kyan app by the end of June. I am 45 days through already, so it seems quite achievable, and also it seems quite time bound. So thanks so much for sharing. I see some more people typing in. I know it's not always that easy, so take your time. How can you reframe your goal for it to become smart? I love this reflection. I find it is even more powerful if we give ourselves a reward for completing the goal. Smart plus R. Thank you so much for bringing up the importance of rewards and compensating ourselves. We will cover exactly that point in a few more minutes. I agree with that. So one more here. By the end of August, I'm planning to get PMP certificate with high grade. And by next month, I will start a license so I can drive to work and save 1 hour daily. Great. It seems like it's relevant for this person, right? There's a reason behind, starting to have your driver's license. You want to save time. And maybe if you understand what you're going to save time for, maybe to spend time in a different hobby, or go to the beach with your loved ones, or sleep 1 hour more, it makes it even more relevant when we tied short-term goals with long-term aspirations. Or I want to become a well-being officer in a year time, and I'm committing to train through this specific skills. Thank you so much for all this great examples. You're doing a great work here. So let's keep forward. Keep that goal in mind, okay? Let's have a look at the value of staying on track, right? So we started by setting a goal, right? By identifying what is really in our heart. What do we want to achieve? And now it's important to reflect on values, right? How does this goal will align with what is important and non-negotiable in my life so that it actually resonates on a deeper level over the long term. And then we will be talking about how we can actually integrate it through daily habits and also track progress. So here is an exercise for us to do together. So as you can see, this session is quite interactive. So please take a moment to go through this list of core values. This is not a full list whatsoever. It's simply a suggested list of core values that many people tend to highlight when we ask them what is really important and non-negotiable in your life, right? And please write down 3 to 5 core values that resonate with you from this list or that simply come spontaneously to your mind as you think about your personal or business values, right? It could be something like inspiration, kindness, success, teamwork, power, adventure. Okay, think of values as, you know, if I would like to leave something behind me to next generations, if I would like to leave a message to next generations about how to enjoy life or how to make life meaningful, what would that message be like, right? And what would be the main values embedded in that message? Maybe values that you would always thought of, transmitting to your children, or leaving as a legacy in your company, or leaving as a legacy to your team. So take a moment. Choose 3, 4, 5 core values that resonate with you. I'm going to be silent for 10 more seconds in case you need them. And now, let's do this exercise. We're going to link values to your goals. So go back to the goal you wrote previously at the beginning of the session, right? And that you made SMART. And for each value you just chose, ask yourself, how does achieving that particular goal reflect or support this value? So again, what we're doing here is strengthening the possibility of achieving a goal by making it relevant to your life and to what is really meaningful and important for you. Let's think of values as lighthouses that guide our steps. It could be a compass in life, right? A value is not a place where you arrive once and for all, right? Values walk with us and move with us in our lives and in our careers. It's not a moment of life when we finally achieve a value, if you know what I mean. So imagine that your goal is, I would like to exercise 3 times a week because I want to run a marathon with my son, right? Next year. Excellent. So ask yourself, if you chose that goal, how does that relate to family? And maybe if you chose the value of family, you could decide to, run with your daughter or with your son instead of running by yourself. Or you would like to decide to run understanding every time you feel demotivated that you want to be healthier and more fit to spend more quality time with loved ones, because maybe you are recovering from a time of illness and you really, really want to feel healthy to enjoy more quality time with your loved ones, right? So now exercising 3 times a week is not simple and nice to have. This is directly connected with what you value the most in life. For example, spending time with your family, right? So I think you're getting the point of connecting values with goals. And here is another example, maybe related to professional goals, right? So let's say you're thinking of a team or management related goal. I need or I want to increase our department's client retention rate, right? And you said, but I value love in life. What does love have to do as a value with the professional goal of my company of increasing our client retention rate, right? And here, the invitation is to consider a wider perspective, right? Maybe if you work in the customer care department or if you manage a customer care team and you value love, you can do some research about the value of psychological safety. This is actually one of the topics we deliver in many of our Kyan Health sessions. And when people feel truly cared and valued, even by companies working with them, they get much more involved and they feel better. So actually, try to connect your personal values with what you do every day for the living, and your values can help you increase the quality of the work you do, right? And helps you build long-term relationship with your clients, with your colleagues. So think of a wider perspective when you think of business goals and personal values. So we're talking about values. Now let's talk about habits. Let's say you have clarity what you want to achieve. Let's say your goal is quite relevant, is specific, is measurable, and now you ask yourself, Natalia, how can I make this stick? Right? And I think here, James Clear, the author of a great book called Atomic Habits, has some information and valuable hacks for us. He says, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You actually fall to the levels of your systems. Read that again. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you actually fall to the levels of your systems, right? So even small changes in your daily habits can take you a long way. I think that's one of the core messages of his book. I deeply recommend you Atomic Habits as like a companion book if you are interested in incorporating long-term sustainable habits to your work life or daily life. And one of the things he recommends us to do to incorporate habits when it comes to achieving our goals is to understand how our brain works and what our system needs to, become stable in long-term achieving goals, right? First of all, he speaks about triggers or cues that initiate the behavior we need to support ourselves in starting incorporating a habit by strategically, implementing in our daily agenda cues that let us know this is the moment when you start doing what you promised yourself you would do. Then the response, which is the specific behavior or action you said you were going to do. And then finally, you mentioned this before, is the reward. How am I going to reward myself after good work done, even if it was a small thing? So let's have a look at some examples, right? What could be a cue? So a cue helps us make it obvious. For example, when you wake up in the morning, right? You're not looking around the house, your toothbrush, trying to recall where you left it the day before. Usually you leave, the toothbrush in the bathroom, maybe next to the mirror, right? Why? Because you know that if you make it obvious for you to and easy to find the toothbrush, it's much more likely that you respond with the behavior of brushing your teeth, right? So this is a very simple daily habit that we, or most of us, have already uh, incorporated since children, and that helps us understand why making habits obvious helps us a lot, right? How can you create triggers or cues, for example, for business related goals? So, for example, set a recurring task in your calendar to make sure you follow up with that specific client or with a specific group of people in your company because you said that, increasing the retention rate was your goal. So, every morning when that recording task and notification goes on, that's the cue, right? Make it easy, right? For example, you said it's important for you to create stronger relationship with your clients. How about preparing a template for you or for your team members so it's easier for your team members to follow up and save time when it comes to, connecting with clients? How can I make it really easy and even enjoyable, right? A template is a starting point. And finally, a reward. How can you make it satisfying? I believe that if we, in the same way that we reward our children after work well done, or we reward our dogs after they, with a treat after they, follow our instructions, when we offer ourselves a small reward, that helps us stay really motivated because it gives our brain the information that we are on the right track, that we are moving toward what's important for us. So We talk about setting our goals. We talk about the importance of staying on track, of building habits, connecting our goals to non-negotiable personal or business values. Now let's talk for a moment about how can we overcome challenges, right? So think of different goals or dreams or aspirations you had in your life. What got in the way? What obstacles did you encounter when trying to achieve a goal? It could be internal obstacles such as, limiting beliefs, storytelling, your self-talk. It could be objective external challenges, you name it. So please go to Slido and share with us, with total honesty, what's getting in the way of you achieving what you said you want to achieve. Because if it was that easy, right, we probably wouldn't be sharing this session today, right? This is about being human. So what is getting in your way? Okay, I tried too much too fast. Okay, maybe it's a question about consistency of the same strategy. I lost motivation at some point. I didn't manage to stay focused. I didn't have time. I was too tired. Maybe we have competing priorities, right? And that gets us exhausted, of course, makes total sense. Unexpected events that become a priority. That's also a very common situation in today's fast paced work environments, competing priorities or unexpected situations. The goal was way too big. Absolutely. It's how can we make them, achievable and realistic? Could be a good question there. Lack of resources. We want to achieve this. We have the motivation. We have the energy, but I don't have the support. Decided it was not the right goal, which is also absolutely legal and possible. When we talk about setting goals, one of the obstacles could be I have to be super, super disciplined forever and ever. But again, reality sets in, and maybe that personal goal is no longer that relevant and something else came in. Lost the will to do it or decided it was not the right goal. Excellent. Well, here are some strategies to plan for obstacles, right? If you plan for obstacles, it doesn't mean that you're going to see more obstacles necessarily. It means that you will feel much better prepared in case those real, objective, or internal obstacles come in your way. So ask yourself, for example, if my goal is to run 3 times a week, but I know from my past experience that I tend to feel too tired because of work or other obligations, what am I going to do? So what I'm going to do is change into workout clothes maybe as soon as I get home and do just 10 minutes of movement, right? Or I'm going to share with you one of my hacks. Usually I'm too tired by 5 or 6 p.m. to go to my Pilates or yoga class. I know that typically I end up canceling my classes because I'm too tired by that time of the day. So what am I doing? I'm trying to schedule my important meetings in the afternoon when possible, so that I can leave 2 mornings every week to go to Pilates, because I know that by planning like this, it's much more likely for me to really, really attend to my gym classes, right? So think in your situation, how can you plan ahead to really be a good friend, really be on your side? Imagine that you're trying to save money, right, for financial goal, but you have the tendency, like many of us, choosing a lot of things in your Amazon app. And then you tend to spend a lot of money on things that probably are not that useful or that urgent, right? So next time you notice you are tempted to buy something you don't really need, then plan to leave it in your basket for maybe 1 or 2 days, and then come back to the platform the following day and really ask yourself, do I still need it? Or next week, do I still need it? And if you still feel that you need it, then you buy it, right? So this helps us respond instead of reacting, right? Our brain sometimes makes these shortcuts to save time, but usually that doesn't necessarily save our money. They're not the wisest decisions. So play with your mind in a safe way by creating space, by expanding the time between stimuli and response. Also, I think this is a very important topic, is accountability. When we are by ourselves, maybe if you've been into any team project, you know that when you have the right people in your corner, when you have the right mentors, when you have the right fitness teacher, right, when you have the right people encouraging you, being loyal and telling you what you need or supporting you with resources, is much more likely that you achieve what you want in life or in business, right? So the probability of completing a goal is 95% higher if you have an accountability partner. So my question to you right now is, who is that person, or who is that community or group of people? Maybe it could be a qualified coach or therapist. Maybe it could be your teacher. It could be your partner. So it's really important that you consider that you don't need to do this work by yourselves. The power of accountability is immense, right? When we know, when somebody else knows what we're committed to, we have ongoing support. It's much more likely to stay focused. And also, that person can help us reframe our goal or reframe, the steps we're going to take when reality sets in, when unexpected situation sets in. A mentor is not necessarily someone that is going to tell you you're perfect all the time. It's probably someone that is going to say you nasty things in a human and kind way, right? To keep you focused on what really matters. So the accountability partner is going to help you basically stay on track. And again, feel challenged, but at the same time, feel supported. So to summarize, we've been talking about the SMART framework to make our goals smarter. We talk about the importance of connecting our goals with values, about making it as easy as brushing your teeth, by creating daily habits to support long-term goal success, and the importance of planning for possible obstacles through the if-then model, right, which you can always apply anytime. And again, we talked finally about the power of accountability, because again, with regular check-ins and accountability, it's easier. So having said this, I'm going to go to Vlad. Over to you, Vlad.
Thank you very much for the exciting session. I was, scribbling down notes, thinking about my accountability partner. I have a long list of goals I need to get done. So very, very insightful.
My
Um,
pleasure.
Maybe sharing my screen a little bit. So, and let's see how we do this. All right. So if you enjoyed this session, it was designed to be a bit of a teaser, right? So it's a core session that's part of our Kyan Academy program. We've had the pleasure of working with Natalia for, I think it's more than 2 years now.
Yeah.
And the goal of Kyan Academy is to be able to address some of the more challenging topics that your organization is dealing with. It can be around setting goals, which is a constructive topic. We would typically run this type of session in the beginning of the year when people's resolutions are still fresh. But we can, of course, also tackle more difficult topics, conflict management in the workplace, avoiding burnout, training your HR leaders on how to manage complex mental health cases, training your managers on how to notice when somebody in their team is struggling, or how to have an effective conversation around mental health. All of those programs are part of our Kyan Academy and can be delivered pretty much anywhere in the world in any language. We also have a version that's available as an e-learning or a masterclass. So that's usually an entry point where some of our clients start the relationship with Kyan Health. The way it works best, it actually, if it's data driven. So Kyan Academy can help address challenges that are surfaced in Kyan Enterprise, which is our people analytics dashboard that essentially aggregates data and helps us figure out, why are your people struggling? Why are they going on sick leave? Why maybe they're leaving the organization? What's really driving burnout? Right? And through Kyan Academy, we can target those reasons and hopefully turn the tide. And obviously, the way we collect this data is through Kyan Care. You can think of it as a personal companion for every single person in your organization, right? Or an EAP on steroids, because instead of engaging with 2 or 3% of employees in a year, it typically engages with 30 to 40, sometimes even 50% of employees in a year. Right? So this is really core to our offering at Kyan Health. We hope you enjoyed today's session and could experience part of the way we collaborate with our clients. If you would like to learn more, and I will leave this QR code here for a few moments, we encourage you to get in touch with us. We have an awesome partnerships team. Chances are, if you do contact us, you'll have a great 30 minutes getting to know them. And our goal really is to learn about your organization and how we can support you to meet your goals. So with that, I will maybe hand it over to any questions we may have received from the audience. I'll stop sharing my screen here, and perhaps Natalia, you can share back. I think there were a few questions that we already had there, and we can address those in the coming 3 to 4 minutes.
Yes, so far I haven't seen questions. I have seen just comments regarding the previous, polling sessions. But I'm going to share again my screen in case new questions are coming up. Maybe this is your opportunity to, share any questions you may have about the content, about goal setting, about planning. We're here for 1 or 2 more minutes in case you need to even reflect. Maybe it could be a question, or it can also be a final reflection or a final takeaway. Maybe one thing you would like to do differently, or you would like to try this week in your personal life or with your team as a result of this session.
Maybe I have one question while we
Yeah.
wait. I think these are answers from the previous polls. I'm a young father. My daughter is now 8 months, and the older one 2.5 months, and they both don't sleep. So I was hoping to, improve my sleep score. What can I do? Are there any specific ways you can adapt your goal given, very difficult circumstances, some of which can't be changed?
Absolutely. So I think you said you wanted to say 8 months and 2.5 years, not two
Yeah,
and a half months. But yeah,
two and a
I
half
got
years. Sorry, 2.5 years.
you see
You
here
see, lack of sleep.
you see that's lack of sleep. Well, I think that also it's a bath of reality. I can totally empathize with you, Vlad, because I'm also a parent. Right now I have only one child, like the only one. She's 6 years old, but I went through exactly the same stages. If I look at my younger self, at the person I was 6 years ago, when I was, definitely struggling to, balance my priorities, my work-related life with my sleep habits, I would probably be a little, like, at least 10% kinder with that version of myself, right? I don't know if this is, a data-based recommendation, but I would say definitely you can do everything, but you cannot do everything at the same time. So I think it's about prioritizing, right? So if at this stage of your life, really getting enough hours of sleep while taking care of your babies or your partner is important, maybe it's time to have a conversation with your team to delegate what's possible to be delegated, or maybe reduce the scope of your personal business or your personal project. So it doesn't mean you're going to give up work. Obviously, many of us still need to work, but how can you reshape your goals and the scope and the reach of your goals in a way that your long-term health is not drained? Because in the end of the day, in 5 years from now, if you did not take care of your own body and your mental health, remember, we have something called postpartum depression in women, and I truly believe that also affects men, even though there's not a lot of research. So if you do not take care of your mental health, how would it be possible for you to lead a successful business in 5 years from now? So that would be my recommendation: reprioritizing.
That's helpful. Compassion, prioritization, and delegation. And I'll share the recording of this video with my team. Hopefully, they can also learn a little bit about the smart way of setting goals. I think we have two questions.
Yes.
Are there other frameworks than SMART, or is this still the most up to date?
That's a great question. I am not usually using a lot of frameworks with my coaching clients. Usually I use the SMART framework because I believe it's still very flexible and adaptable. And again, it doesn't require from us that we cover all of the 5 areas of the SMART goal setting, but still it's quite achievable. So to be honest, I'm not aware of other frameworks. I'm not sure, Vlad, if you have any other inputs regarding goal setting frameworks that you usually use in these cases. But this
I
is the
would
one I
not use
know.
I would not use a framework per se. What we do use are frequent check-ins. The most challenging part is not the way you set the goal necessarily, but tracking progress towards that goal in a way that keeps you engaged and keeps you motivated, right?
Mhm.
So what we do is we encourage daily reflections where you bring back the reason for those goals, right? And part of what's available in the Kyan Care app is this system of micro learnings, micro journaling that keeps you evolving towards your goal. I think that's a if I had to evolve the framework in one precise way, it would be by adding these micro check-ins so you can have a sense of progress over time.
Hmm.
We
Thank
have
you.
also somebody who suggested the
The
score is
score.
also a great tool. I actually don't know the score, but we'll have a look.
Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. Um, Someone else is also asking, what can we do to lose less because of procrastination? Well, thank you. Thank you for this question because I think there's partially an answer embedded in the question, right? One way of supporting ourselves when we are procrastinating an important goal is maybe asking ourselves with total honesty, what is it that I'm losing in my personal life, in my business, in my career, because I'm waiting for the perfect time to start this, right? Waiting for the perfect time to achieve this goal. This is a very, profound and personal reflection that each of us needs to do. But maybe when you start moving in direction to your desired goal, there's a lot more things you're going to be learning about how to achieve more effectively that goal if you start moving. So if you have to choose between 20 steps on paper and one step in reality, I would recommend you just to do one imperfect step, just to advance one perfect step. And you might be learning from the path what needs to be done to remain consistent for the next steps. But again, noticing what you're losing or missing could be already the beginning of the answer.
Just
Thank
one
you.
reflection adding to that. I guess
Mhm.
this is my number one learning from also building a startup. There's no perfect goal or perfect way to do it or perfect strategy or perfect budget or perfect plan. You learn most by taking a first step and then a second step and a third step, and you kind of adjust your goals as you grow, right? So thanks for that reflection, Natalia.
Definitely. And also, when we talked about this in other sessions, right? Sometimes when we navigate change, or when we, face procrastination, one of the big fears is of mistake. When we change the fixed mindset with a growth mindset, it means that we see failures as teachers, as good opportunities to improve ourselves. So procrastination is usually directly connected with fear of failure in many of us, right? So notice what version of you is waiting on the other side of that imperfect step, and maybe you will learn more about what is important for you. So I think this is all the questions we have for now. I don't see any other questions.
I think
So
that's it.
yes,
Natalia, thank you so much for the informative session. I want to also thank all the participants who joined us today. We will be sharing a recording of this session in case you want to also distribute it internally or share it with friends. And again, we encourage you to get in touch with us if you found the session today insightful. We'd love to share more.
thank you.